Welcome to the BX2PATH Show, where we dive deep into the realms of education and financial literacy. We blend insights on college education, career prospects, and the necessary financials to stay on your path. I'm your host, Dheeraj Naraharisetti, and today I'm thrilled to have our co-host, Dr. Gordon Chiu. Dr. Chiu is not just an author, innovator, investor, and scientist, but also a visionary who has completed Wharton's Advanced Management Program and Harvard's Business Analytics program. He has co-founded a startup, Finigra, in February of 2023 to won that year's Global Tech Technology Prize in the Harvard Business School New Metric competition. Let's welcome Dr. Chu.
Hi,
Dr. Chu,
Dheeraj. Hi.
hi. Yeah, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah.
I'm a
So,
bit stuffy today, so in
yeah.
case I sound nasal, it's because it's ragweed season. We
Uh-huh.
blame it all on ragweed, but there's other weeds going on in the fall months
I
in
see.
the East Coast, so I'm
I
a
never,
bit
I never
stuffy.
really had allergies, but uh,
Um, yeah, it'll come and go, but that's great. I want to, I don't turn down interviews because I sound different, right? I take on all interviews because they happen to come and as a out of respect for people, um, if they want to interview me, I interview with them.
of course, it's always about being bigger than ourselves.
And
But
there's no time to time things, right? Time doesn't wait for anyone. So just constant, continuous movement. And so, when you look at what today is, it's October 4th. So it's 1 month into the start of any school year.
uh-huh,
So it's not on the first week of school anymore. Now you've
one
got
month.
exams and you've got various things. And what do you think, by the way, of when I mention this to a lot of people, but arithmetic, subtraction, multiplication, and division have been around for 20,000 years if you use it in a broad sense. And if you look at algebras, have been around for 4,000 years when you think of it broadly. But calculus has been around for 400 years, 17th century. If you
Mhm.
think of Isaac Newton uh, and Leibniz, and then a little bit their forefathers, which was Cavalieri, a Franciscan monk. So if you think about that, um, these are not new subjects, but we test students on them every single year. Every school gives out the same awards every year. Um, and somehow people get like really like they get enamored by having their child win these awards. So how I do it is I tell students about how long this has been. So if you get like if you get a question wrong on something that's been around for 20,000 years, that's the bigger problem. Not reversing and saying, "Oh, you should get 100 because 100 means a lot." It actually means nothing.
Uh-huh,
It doesn't mean anything. It's all created and fabricated. Um,
exactly.
and that drives students to say, "Oh my goodness, it's been around 20,000 years. Um, I shouldn't get anything wrong." And that builds a better individual, right? Because think about when you go and open a door, right? Have you ever opened a door with a handle on it?
Yes, yeah,
All
did.
right. So, yeah, obviously, right? We've all opened doors, but imagine if you went to open the door and you touched the handle of the door,
Uh-huh.
you felt it, and then you turned around and sat back down,
Then the
right?
door will be opened.
No, don't open the door. Okay,
Oh,
so put your hand on the door handle and don't open the door. Feel the door handle, right? And then if it's a metal door handle, which is usually what it is, a knob or something, you'll feel that it's colder to the touch. How cold? You're not usually even aware of how cold it is because you just open the door and you go out, right?
mm-hmm.
But if you paid attention to the door handle and door knob, you will then feel that it's colder to the touch. And instead of going through the door, feel it for a second, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then go sit back down.
Why? Why?
Well, we're not done yet. So you have to now go back to the door because you want
Yeah.
to go outside, and then you go look at the door, um, and don't touch the door handle, and then after you do that, go sit back down, and then
Mm-hmm.
now go open the door, feel the door handle, look at it, pause, open the door, and then use your other hand to touch that door, the door frame, your left hand to touch the door frame if you're right-handed, and that your right hand's on the doorknob and door handle, and then you pause there for 10 seconds, and then you close the door again and go back, sit back down. So you haven't actually exited through the door, but during the exercise, you really engage into deep awareness of the process of opening the door. Something
Hmm.
you have never done before, probably in the last 10 years. No one has asked you to do this, something like this.
No.
Right. So before we do the algebra, before we do the arithmetic, is we need to tell you that stuff has been around for 20,000 years. Algebra has been around 4,000 years. So don't get any like any like attitude about how you're better than someone else if you do the questions right, because it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So that you can look up historically, and if you compare it to opening doors, you know how many people have opened the door? A lot, right?
Yeah.
You've opened the door many times, but you've never spent time thinking about the door
No.
opening process, right?
Yeah.
I, but that changes your awareness. You've now made opening the door a really, really interesting subject matter.
Hmm.
Okay. And as you do that, you increase your awareness. And as I promised you, after tonight's podcast, I will post something on my LinkedIn related to this. All right,
Hmm.
because life isn't about checking boxes. Life isn't about getting hundreds on tests and SAT scores of 1600 out of 1600.
It really
Big
isn't.
big deal. You know
Yeah.
how many people have done that before, and what does that do for humanity?
It doesn't make you special in any sense.
Right. So
Only
you're yeah.
capabilities.
So you're building a company with me, and I've built many companies, right? So when you think about your audience, fifth and sixth graders, and you look at all the other companies that have built for fifth and sixth graders, you see some companies teaching people how to get into uh into college. Oh, we
I mean,
promise
I feel like
you.
there's only two types of companies, both for fifth and sixth graders. One being the coach centers, the prep centers, and the other being the how to get into college type companies.
Right, so more checkboxing,
Yeah.
more checkboxing. But what I described about opening the door is the act of raising someone's awareness,
Hmm.
right? So that we can have a better world together.
Hmm.
Today, on October 4th, we've got two major wars going around in the world.
Yeah.
Presidential election that's about to come, and we have a mess all over the place from people that are mad as hell, pretty upset.
Very upset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whether it's jobs or in fact, when I met you, you're a pretty upset person too, rightfully
Yeah.
so, because you look around and everything is like, how could this be good?
Hmm.
And you're right, it's not good. And how is it not good, and why is it not good? It is deeply and fundamentally related to, as we described, if you're going to create a business around fifth and sixth graders, it's those two businesses is to get you into the best place, um, the Ivy Leagues or places like that. And
But I think
yeah,
that just starting
right,
off with that,
yeah,
like the business of getting into an Ivy League is exactly what the Ivy League does not want.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's terrible. What do you mean the
Terrible.
business of getting into Ivy Leagues? That's so horrible. If the
Exactly.
Ivy League individuals are supposed to make the world a better place, then there is no such thing as the business of getting in, because that would be wrong.
Exactly. They want
Authenticity.
people that go to Ivy Leagues don't want to get into Ivy Leagues. It just happens. It's just part of the process.
So I'm going to read you something that
Uh,
I read when I was very young. All right, and I want everybody else to hear this as they listen to this. And it's titled "Children Learn What They Live."
mhm.
And I posted this, and I just clicked on LinkedIn, so it's now up there. Um, if a child lives with criticism, and I I put it as she because my daughter, right? She learns to condemn others. If a child lives with hostility, she learns to fight others. If a child lives with ridicule, she learns to be shy. If a child lives with shame, she learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with tolerance, she learns to be patient. If a child lives with encouragement, she learns confidence. If a child lives with praise, she learns to appreciate. If a child lives with fairness, she learns justice. If a child learns to live with security, right, she learns justice. If she lives with security, she learns to have faith. If she lives with approval, she learns uh, to like herself. And if she lives with acceptance and friendship, she learns to find love in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as parents, right, what kind of environment we set up for our children fundamentally matters, right?
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
as opposed to saying, all right, you have to do these tasks, and only then will you be good enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right? We have to have a greater responsibility into what we say because when you first asked me, if we want to do a podcast tonight, and you sent me that thing, I said, no, no, let's do it now, because it's fresh in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's very disgusting how we build businesses around checkboxing, and then people check the box or they pay for the box checking, and then they find out that it didn't lead them to a better place,
Exactly.
right? It didn't, because it's not to get to a better place, the ultimate place. It is to not check box and box check, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It is
And
to build a path that matters, not to do something you just love or like, but something that matters, that makes other human beings find purpose in being human.
and that's what these Ivy Leagues really want. They want the people that just don't chase cheap enjoyment. And what I mean, enjoyment or entertainment. They don't look towards going to a football game. They look towards something bigger, bigger than themselves, bigger than the community they were brought up in. They have a vision.
So it's very peculiar. I did not make it into an Ivy League when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
My father told me that he was number one in China,
Uh-huh.
right? And so when I came home and I wasn't number one in first grade or second grade, third grade, it was kind of upsetting to him. Um, but if
Mhm.
as it continued into fifth grade and sixth grade, it became a pattern that I just wasn't willing to be number one. And then in high school, as I dropped my rank from number nine to number 10 and 11, and then by the time I graduated, I was 28 out of 350 kids.
Mhm.
Um, I'll share with you why. This isn't China, and my father isn't Bruce Lee. So if I in the 70s were to be
Uh-huh.
number one, um, I might get beat up by 20 other kids.
Hmm.
My lunch might be poisoned.
Oh, what
you know,
what would the teacher say?
well, I said you know, when I back in then, parents hit their kids, and I got hit a lot and beat a lot
Mhm.
because, but I was willing to accept that because I would know my father would run out of energy to keep beating me,
But the
and I
kids,
would also know how he would hit me, and even under the more violent times, because he thought that if he did that to me, I would. You're just one person hitting me, but if I were to act like number one in school and have that attitude, first of all, even being number one isn't really number one because the algebra is around, the math has been around for 20,000 years. So it's like I don't get it, but I want to have a good time in school,
hmm
and a good time isn't being number one in the United States. Now, when you're younger, you don't really see it from all the perspectives. But now that I'm older, I totally see it. Um, had I gotten into Harvard or Wharton when I was an undergrad, I would have had to have done certain things to think that, like box checking things, to believe that doing that would get in, and then only to find out possibly that I didn't, right? That
Mhm.
would hurt a lot more. And I would have created a lot of enemies that otherwise became friends with me. So I would have missed out on a portion of life. I wouldn't be doing this interview with you because this is probably beneath people who go to undergraduates, right? And then
Yeah.
do things, right? And I found a very different path of life. And you mentioned every podcast, and people mention this, where I went to Harvard, and when I did those things at Wharton, but it became a natural thing as opposed to wanting it to be box checked, or it had to happen at that moment, right? If it didn't happen at that moment, it's not worth anything. It's just not true. It's just not
Exactly.
true, right? And
Because these Ivy League students, they're just more than the school. Like there's so much more
Uh, the
name.
Ivy Leagues are totally worth. There, and I'm blowing my nose, but the Ivy Leagues are totally worth going to when it is the right time for you, though.
Hmm.
If it's the wrong time, then then you know it's going
Just
to be
making
a reduced experience, even if
exactly.
you get in, right? So let's stop it with all this stuff about being number one in arithmetic when it's been around for 20,000 years. I mean, why can't we be honest and truthful that Mickey Mouse isn't real? But then, because you still love Mickey Mouse, you still go there and you still go to Disney. We have to stop it with the lies. We
Hmm.
lie to ourselves, lie to our, and we create these lies thinking that it's a motivator, right? So I sang a song. I can't read or write Chinese, but I sang a song about freedom that was present in 1993. By the time I heard it, it was released in 1993. By the time I heard it, it was already 2007. And I was 33 years old. And then today, I this year I sang it, but it took 17 years for me to learn the song because I didn't have any drive to do it. Then for my older daughter, I had a reason to learn it. It's about valuing freedom, and it's about valuing love, and it's about valuing the the cherished love, because it's a Valentine song really, but about the person that realizes that they love the other individual, but it's too late and they miss them. And how I sang it, because it's part of my research funding, it's a Chinese song. It's about singing to your cellular self. So your cells are in your body, they listen to the song, and then in that same song, as you get to the ending, the cells are singing back to you. And it's a new way I created for meaning for the song. My daughter was touched by it, so she sings it and she plays the piano without any sheet music. She just plays it by ear. And these people in Hong Kong are able to listen to this and gain a new realization, right? So I posted that on LinkedIn today, just within this podcast. So I just pressed the release button. But it is by doing these things, I have brought Chinese into my household. I
Hmm.
have encouraged my children to embrace this without any goal setting, because goal setting actually leads to failure. It leads to stagnation, because once you reach your goals, you're just going to stop. And if you don't end up being number one, like an Olympic gold, no one says, "Oh, I got Olympic bronze," or I got fourth. Fourth is like, don't even mention it. But you know
Yeah.
how much work was involved to get to number four? These are all tremendously valuable things that we search for perfection, and we only reward perfection, and we lose out all the good in the world. And that's
Mm.
why it sucks and it feels terrible, because we're just so focused on perfect,
I see.
right? Stop
Oh.
it. We got to stop it. We have the choice to vote for a better world. So I launch a lot of kids into IVs, but the kids that come through me, um, you're like one of the kids that is coming through me, and
Yeah.
we talk about other things. So if it happens now, Great. But if it doesn't happen now, we don't force the issue. Um, Someone who's able to open that door and then close it, do you know the freedom that they have? Is that they're able to have time to feel out and raise awareness on door opening.
Exactly. They are now in that they have respect. They're verified. Whatever they say has value to it now, which gives them
Yeah.
more freedom.
So, awareness of yourself,
Exactly.
cultivating the awareness is
Uh-huh.
something every child deserves to have, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm writing a children's book right now, and it's for 5 year olds, but also for 50 years olds, and it's about speaking to your inner child. Imagine if the tortoise and the hare, you've heard of that story. What if the tortoise didn't want to compete with the hare, or the hare doesn't want to compete with the tortoise? Same thing. So that they would end up being number one and being alone. What if they realized this and wanted to help each other out? What if the race was not a flat surface like it is in the story, but it was actually in a muddy, dark forest where, the tortoise just wouldn't see, even though, even if the story goes, the original story goes that the hare falls asleep and the tortoise makes it, by slow and steady. That's such full of lies. Life isn't about slow and steady,
Hmm.
right? But imagine about teamwork where the hare grabs some bright colored flowers and lays the path for the tortoise. And the tortoise hits a mud spot, mudslide area, and the rabbit helps, takes twigs and lays it on the mud so that the tortoise can go through. Uh,
Life is
Stories
better.
can be written from a very different perspective. I don't know what these adults were going through because children don't write these stories, but adults write them for children to read, for other adults to read to their children. What were you going through that you had to say, London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady, right?
Hmm.
Right? What? I'm sorry that this happened, but, we got to stop poisoning ourselves.
Hmm. I see.
Toxicity, right? With toxic things, right? We don't need a world where we haven't found another planet, so there's no planet B. We don't need to keep promoting extreme authoritarian conditions,
No.
right?
Hmm.
Here's another quote. My father didn't tell me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. This is Clarence Kelland.
Hmm.
Very inspirational. And then another quote, Amy Weatherly says, children have this way of becoming who we tell them they are. If we tell them they are strong, they become strong. If we tell them they are kind, they become kind. If we tell them they are capable, they become capable. Speak life into your kids so they will have what it takes to tackle their own life one day.
Very,
How
very well.
does that not get you into a great place when it's the right time?
It always does. Because when I was growing up, right, I didn't have my dad told me not to do more. He said, don't take better courses, don't take higher courses because I wasn't the best kid in middle school, and that kind of pushed me down. So,
Yeah, well, we 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 have to free our minds. We have to go to the door,
uh-huh.
open it and pause, and then go sit back down. And then when we open it again, we have to have the awareness of how it feels. Raise our awareness. That's just an exercise, but raising our awareness as opposed to let's do 500 of these math problems. Do it until you can't make any mistakes. Well, now you've turned it into a robotic exercise. And if you didn't fix the problem, how to approach it, you've now burned 500 ways of doing it the wrong way into your mind. And maybe now you're listening to music, other things, and you're not even fully there, but you did it 500 times. Box checking, it's interesting we call it box to path, but box checking is the wrong approach. We're human beings. What are we doing to ourselves? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So
yeah.
this we keep it short. I think it's a
Uh,
great interview, and hopefully it helps people out there. Right.
I really hope it does.
All right. Thank you. Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.